Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Espresso webinar series for OEM. I hope you're comfortable in the office or at home and already sipping some good coffee. We have some exciting content for today. But first of all, my name is Alvaro and I am Solutions Architect for OEM at Qlik, which means I have the pleasure of looking after the OEM business and partners in EMEA who deliver analytics to the end customers using Qlik technology. So these are the topics for today. I'm going to start this session with a brief explanation of the Qlik Reporting Service, a comparison of the two reporting user experiences available in Qlik Cloud. Then I'm going to show you two different models to activate a reporting service for your end customers with the exact steps needed to set up each model. And last but not least, a list of resources for you to get started quickly. Okay, let's begin. Qlik Reporting Service provides the ability to distribute multi-page reports in PDF, PowerPoint format. Excel is coming soon, from QlikSense applications to both Qlik users and non-Qlik users in an automated, accelerated approach, leveraging Automations, which is a no-code visual environment, or if you prefer, using the Qlik Reporting API. This offering expands the analytics reach of QlikSense across your customer's ecosystem and delivers greater value from the QlikSense SaaS investment you are doing. Before we continue, just to avoid confusion, Qlik Cloud offers today two reporting experiences. The first is the centralized reporting service. The second is the native self-service reports with subscription. What are the differences between them? The first is targeting the report designers typically working in VI or IT using Qlik Automations or the Qlik Reporting API. You can create reports using one or multiple QlikSense applications. Selections are applied at the sheet level. The report's length is up to 50 pages, and you can send these reports to unlimited users, to both users with a Qlik entitlement and non-Qlik users. This centralized reporting service is included in your Qlik Cloud subscription up to 100 reports per month. Additional reports have an extra cost. On the other side, reports with subscriptions are targeting the licensed user working in a QlikSense application. These self-service reports can be created only using the same application where the user is working. The selections will be applied to all sheets in the application included in that report. And the report's length is up to 10 pages. The recipient list is limited to maximum 100 Qlik users, and this is completely free and included in your Qlik Cloud subscription. Now, before showing the different ways of activating the reporting service in Qlik Cloud for OEM, I'd like to review some terminology. All tenants provisioned with a Qlik Cloud multi-tenancy enabled license are generally equal in functionality and, apart from sharing the same entitlement, resemble independent tenants. As such, there is no real parent-child relationship between these tenants, but for easier understanding, we will use the following definitions. Target tenant, which is a Qlik Cloud tenant used by an OEM partner's customer, and the source tenant, a Qlik Cloud tenant used by an OEM partner itself to develop template apps, automations, etc., for use on the child tenants or target tenants and to monitor tenants through the OEM dashboard. Also, during this webinar, I'll be referring to these two models. The full service model, when an OEM partner itself activates a reporting automation which sends report by email to their customers, or the self-service model, when an OEM's partner's customer activates their own reporting automation to connect to a specific distribution channels, configure the run mode for the automation, etc.
So let's begin with the full service model. I have two different examples to show you today about this model. In the first one, we are going to send reports to our customers from inside an application. In this application, you are going to see some charts displaying data by location, by customer, etc. But on the next sheet, we have created a specific table for selecting the recipients of the report. You can see contact names and email addresses for each customer. These are the email addresses we're going to use to send the reports. Then there is a button to send the report. Now let's imagine we want to send a report in PDF format to two different customers based on the customer overview we just saw. You're going to make the selections and click on the button. When I click the button, the reporting automation will run in the background. We can see this in the history details. We can explore the different blogs and preview the results for each of them. While this is running and while we wait for the automation run to finish, we can look at the editor and the different blocks. The automation must have an input block directly below the start block to collect data from the application. Also, we need to add a block apply bookmark that uses these inputs. Note that the bookmark is not available immediately after its creation, so we are adding a block sleep for at least 5 seconds. Then we are creating a new report. We are adding content to this report based on the customer overview sheet in the application. And then we add the block get straight table data. For each selected row in the table, it's gonna loop over. It's gonna filter the report thanks to the block add selections to report. Then generate the report. This is the block counting towards the quota in your Qlik Cloud tenant. And last but not least, we are sending the report to the list of recipients. Last block deletes a bookmark that needs to be temporarily created in the app to pass selections between the app and the automation. If we check the history details, we see that this automation run has been completed. The email has been sent twice. That means that if we check our inbox, we should see the customer overview for a specific customer only with its own data. And if I open the report for the second customer, we have the same layout but a different view of the data.
In this first setup, we have distributed the same report layout but with customer-specific data to the selected recipients in an application. Remember, the application contains the customer emails and data model. Otherwise, you have to load the emails into the app's data model if necessary and associate accordingly. You have to create a straight table in the app with a list of recipients so we can read it from the automation. And you need to create a button with an action to execute the automation inside of the application and check the include selections option. And on the automation side, you need to set up the block's inputs, apply bookmark, and sleep to get and apply the current selections of the user in the automation. Then we're gonna loop over the straight table to filter the report before generating it and sending it by email. In this slide, you can see a high-level diagram for this first setup. The diagram explains the demo we just saw. There is a Qlik application with email addresses for each customer and a button to trigger the reporting automation. When the automation is triggered, it applies the current selections of the user and loops over the straight table to generate a report for each customer, only with their own data. Finally, the send email block in the automation distributes a PDF or PPT report by email to the corresponding recipients.
The second example doesn't use a Qlik application to send reports to your customers. In fact, it's just a reporting automation that leverages IDP groups to send the right report to the right customer. You might want to activate this automation based on a fixed schedule, or you can trigger it externally by calling a webhook URL. Then, the first loop in this automation is going to list all the values from the customer field in the same application we saw during the first demo. Then, the second block is going to loop to get the list of users in your source tenant. And then we have the conditional block, which will validate if the value stored in the groups attribute of the user matches the value in the customer field. Note that for this solution to work, you need to have in your source tenant the users from all your target tenants. Then, if there is a coincidence, the report generation flow is executed, the one you see here. If we look at the data in the customer overview, you're gonna see we have the value Qlik. There is a customer called Qlik. Okay, And if we look at the details of the block list users, you're gonna see that some of the users uh, have a group value assigned. Not the first one, but the second item you see this user with the group Qlik, this user with the group demos. Okay, so the second item in particular should receive the reports based on the customer overview, but only with its own data, which is data related to the Qlik customer. Okay, so if we type Qlik again, he should have this view of the report. Okay, the rest of the automation blocks are pretty straightforward, as they are the same as in the previous example. We're gonna run this. Let's refresh it. Oh, it's disabled, so we need to enable the automation. Now we run it. You can see it's running. You can see here all the different conditions being evaluated for every value we have in the customer field in the app. It's gonna take a while until it gets through it. Okay, now that it's done, we can see, sorting this by chronological order, we can see first we are looking through the list of values, then list of users, and then evaluating the conditions, etc., etc. We can see that this is executed all these times. And then the email has been sent once only to this user, which corresponds to the one that had the Qlik value in the groups attribute. If we check the inbox, there we go, we have the report with the view we were expecting.
This second setup is slightly different. Again, we're going to distribute the same report layout to a number of recipients, but this time we're going to leverage the users and their information in the configured IDP in your Qlik Cloud tenant. For that, we have to synchronize all users in your source tenant, including the group claim with the customer name as a value. The automation will list the customer names loaded into the app using the block list values of field. For each customer, we're going to list users from the configured IDP in your source tenant using the block list users, also from the Qlik Cloud Services connector. And for each user, the automation is going to find if the customer name matches the IDP group value. If positive, then it's going to create a filtered report by customer name and send it to the email configured in the IDP. This diagram for a full service activation of the reporting service shows the automation fetching content from the app and user info in the source tenant. By combining these two in the same automation, for each coincidence between the field value in the app and the group claim of the user, we can filter a report and send by email to the corresponding user. The output is a filtered report containing only data the user is authorized to view.
Next, we're going to see how to activate the self-service model for the reporting service. Here you can see some prerequisites. Make sure you have tenant admin access for the source tenant in Qlik Cloud. You're going to need to create an OAuth client to get access tokens. The tenant access token authorizes the API requests you make to the Qlik Cloud tenants. You can use either Postman or Qlik CLI to interact with your Qlik Cloud tenants by sending API requests. We suggest you download the implementation examples for platform operations, where all the API requests are already pre-built for you. Make sure you enable professional or analyzer user allocation in your target tenants so the users there can work with automations. And this model is called self-service because the users requesting the activation of the reporting service must log in into the target tenant and set up the required connections in the provisioned reporting automation.
So what you see here is my source tenant. You can see an application and an automation. This is my target tenant where I'm going to provision my automation and application. For that, I'm going to leverage the existing platform operations example in Postman. Here you can see we have some variables defined in the collection. You're going to need to specify the region, your source tenant, the client ID and secret, the source app name, the source automation name, the target tenant name, etc. Then once you configure all the variables, we're going to begin by creating a shared space in the target tenant. First, we get an access token, and next we run the create shared space. If we refresh the browser with the target tenant, now you should see the staging space. The name was defined in one of the collection variables. Next, we're going to use the deploy application calls. First, to get an access token for the source tenant, we're going to find the source app ID. We're going to request an app export. And next, download the QBF file. Remember to click on send and download so you can specify the directory where the file will be downloaded. Next, we get an access token for the target tenant. And now in the body request, select the QBF file that you just downloaded with the previous call and send the request. This will import the application into the shared space on the target tenant. Let's check it out. We refresh the browser. Now we see the Sales Insight application. We can skip the 4.7. We don't need to publish the application to a managed space. Next, we're going to deploy an automation. Again, we get an access token, find the source automation ID and the owner on the source tenant, get the OAuth user ID, change the owner of the automation to that user so we can get the automation definition, otherwise it won't work. Now we change it back to the original user on the source tenant. And then we get an access token for the target tenant. We validate that we can communicate with the automation service on the target tenant. And last but not least, we deploy the automation on the target tenant. But this is going to be deployed to the bot user. That is the OAuth user. If we go to the management console, under automations, you will see that. So this requires that you change the owner of the automation to the user requesting to activate the reporting service. In this case, I'm going to specify myself. Now we go to the automations panel. We edit the automation and we can see the workflow. Okay, we are basically creating a binary file on my personal OneDrive. So we can create an Excel file and import some data from an app. So this requires recreating all the connections for OneDrive or SharePoint and for Excel. So this is the manual part that must be done by the user requesting to activate the reporting service. Okay, you could do this for them if they share with you the login credentials, but that's not gonna be usually the case. Okay. Remember to find the new app ID for the provision Sales Insight application or your own application. Okay, and you'll see that this is going to create an Excel table with headers based on data coming from a straight table in that application, in the Inside Sales application. Now we're going to run it, and you'll see in my personal OneDrive that a new Excel report is created. This is still running. Okay, now you can explore each of the blocks, the responses, the results of each of the blocks. If you want to, this finished successfully, so that means that if we open the Excel report, we should see that data. It's still not there. A new version is available. If we update it, now you see a new tab in the Excel spreadsheet and you see the table with data. The source of this data is the insight, the sales insight application. If you open it, you will see we have several sheets, and one of them is the one containing the straight table. We're going to have a look at the automation to see exactly the sheet name and the object, which is KPIs by category. So sales analysis is the sheet, and you see the straight table with the name KPIs category. That's the one we've been using for the Excel report. Here we can see an overview of the steps we need to take to set up the self-service model. The flow will begin with requesting an access token to communicate with the source tenant. From there, we will export the sample application containing the content for the report, and then export the reporting automation. On the other side, on the target tenant, we're going to request as well an access token. We will import the sample application, publish the sample application to a space, import the reporting automation, and the two last steps are manual. We need to log into the target tenant with a user who intends to activate the reporting service, and then we're going to have to configure the automation to, configure the desired connectors. So this is a complete diagram of the self-service model. The reporting automation and the QlikSense application sourcing the automation always reside in the source tenant. And whenever a customer wants to manually activate the reporting service, we should trigger the process that deploys the content from the source tenant to the target tenants. Then it requires that the user has access to the hub, because the reporting automation will be deployed on the personal space of the user requesting the activation. If you need more details on how to set it up, don't hesitate to connect with us, the OEM EMEA pre-sales team at Qlik. I'll be personally happy to assist, or else you can find a lot of information online in the Qlik community articles at qlik.dev for anything related to Qlik Cloud APIs and how to deploy content programmatically. Then the Qlik Online help is also handy to start from the basics and move into the advanced topics. I hope you've enjoyed this Espresso webinar. Thank you.